Far Cry 2 isn't the kind of game you would expect to have a cutesy pixel art version. It's set in a war and disease-stricken African country where you spend the game dealing with malaria and it just feels so lonely and painful, and then here we are with a bright and bubbly looking J2ME game that, just like with Hitman Blood Money, I only found by sheerly searching random game franchises on a suspicious phone game website. So this one is by Gameloft, who these days you probably know as the developers of all those really nice looking phone games. If you don't know, their most well-known original series is probably Asphalt. That's right, I say Asphalt, not Asphalt, but over the years they've made things like Nova, their Halo ripoff, Modern Combat, their COD ripoff, Hero of Sparta, their God of War ripoff, and Gangstar, their GTA ripoff. They were well known for basically the same reasons in the J2ME days, that being that they made graphically impressive versions of relatively expensive feeling games, and they've worked closely with Ubisoft over the years making versions of Prince of Persia, Pets, The Settlers, Brothers in Arms including the DS game which we've looked at on the channel before, Avatar and J2ME which we will look at soon, and of course, Far Cry 2. The tie to Ubisoft goes all the way to both companies' origins, as Gameloft was founded by co-founder of Ubisoft, Michael Guillemot. The other four Ubisoft co-founders are also Guillemot, with their then and current CEO being Michael's brother Yves, so it makes sense that Gameloft worked with Ubisoft so much. Also, fun fact, in 2016, Michael went back to Ubisoft after Vivendi successfully pulled off a hostile takeover of Gameloft, and he did that in order to try to prevent Vivendi from taking over Ubisoft itself. Fun stuff. So Far Cry 2 on Java phones I guess exists because Far Cry 2 was a massive release for Ubisoft and they had a very friendly company who might have offered to make it, or it was easy to ask them to make it. Like a lot of Java games, it comes in a lot of shapes and sizes with resolutions as low as 128 by 128 and as high as 640 by 360. I spent most of my time with a 240 by 320 version of the game for reasons we'll get into later. So starting the game, you select your difficulty, which just seems to change damage numbers, and you pick one of 3 characters to play as, which is just like the main version of the game, although with way less options, and these 3 characters are all playable characters in the regular game. They all control the same as each other and say the same thing, so it's just a visual difference. The loading screen tells you your mission is to kill the Jackal, and when the game starts you're bedridden with the Jackal himself taunting you before stabbing a machete into the wall and leaving. This is pretty much exactly what happens in the main game. After a taxi ride shows you the world, you wake up in a bed, and basically the same events play out. This version of Far Cry 2 loosely tells the same story as the main version, hitting all the same major beats in its own weird way. You tell yourself that malaria is bad, you roll out of bed with a certain ferocity, you don't grab the machete in the wall like you do in the main game because apparently you already have one on you, and you're introduced to a top-down cover shooter. You move with the keypad, you shoot with 5, and with the menu buttons you can pause, aim a Molotov, and switch weapon. You automatically get into cover and the game completely auto-aims for you. Because of this, the game is all about positioning rather than aiming, so you rely pretty heavily on the cover system, which to no one's surprise isn't particularly reliable. It only lets you take cover on knee-high walls and objects, unless it arbitrarily doesn't. Like, look how I can take cover behind this rock, but I can't take cover behind this rock. Or similarly, I can take cover behind this ute, but not this ute. It can get pretty frustrating when you're close to dying and the cover isn't working, but I was surprised by how your character actually rolls between cover automatically. That was a nice touch. Unfortunately, the combat generally just doesn't feel very nice. Whenever you shoot, you stop moving, and whenever you get shot, you get stopped, and for the sake of fairness, I'll chalk this down to the emulation, but the sound often glitched out and made it hard to tell when enemies were even firing at me. Being purely auto-aim based, you can't choose who to shoot at, which naturally creates problems, and the enemies take far too many shots before they die. Although it can be pretty frustrating, this game isn't particularly hard, even on hard mode. Like, it does have its difficult moments, particularly near the end, but most of the time you just need to be patient in cover because unlike the main version of Far Cry 2, this has Call of Duty style regenerating health, so a lot of the gameplay is just a matter of retreating or staying in cover to regen. It's cool that some cover is destructible, and the AI are surprisingly alright at flushing you out by chasing you down. Like, they're not good, but you know, they aren't bad by phone game standards, but they take so long to cook a Molotov that I never let them throw one until almost the last level. When you shoot them, it cancels their throw, and when they take literally 5 seconds to throw one, it's just trivial. Molotovs are fun to throw yourself though, and can help a lot when the game gets a bit tricky. I like how you actually had to aim them, and the flame effects look really nice. In fact, this entire game looks really nice. I know that isn't surprising for a Gameloft game, but the sprite work here is detailed and aesthetically pleasing. The animation is smooth, and from start to finish, it kept surprising me with new sprites and locations. You enter towns and cave systems and jungles and deserts and even an abandoned ship, and it all has this really cool early 90s sort of vibe to it. Like, it feels like a Saturday morning cartoon to me, and I really like how J2ME was sort of this catalyst for some really nice pixel artistry, and Far Cry 2 is a shiny shining example of this. But saying all that, it kinda goes back to the whole thing about this being a cutesy version of Far Cry 2. Frankly, it's both kind of cool and really weird. You're still working with violent factions to take out water and medical supplies, you're still going after a weapons dealer, you're still dealing with malaria, you're literally burning people alive, and you're among starving and diseased refugees, but it's all a cute 90s Saturday morning kids show, and it has a nice warm fuzzy vibe which brings back memories of getting up early to watch cheese TV. In one mission, you're blowing up water towers, and every single time you blow one up, your character says he loves the smell of dynamite in the morning. You blow like half a dozen of them up within 10 minutes, and every single time he says that one 80s action movie line. I love it and I hate it, it's strange. Of course, you don't talk in the normal version of Far Cry 2, but I'm assuming if you did, you'd also be an ultra badass action hero type, right? While we're talking about the themes, let's dig further into the story. So the first level ends by you eventually fainting, which is accurate to the main game, and you find yourself awoken in the APR headquarters, one of the two factions in Far Cry 2. This is where you're introduced to the first of 3 hub areas where you can walk around, chat with people, accept missions, buy ammo, that sort of thing. Think of it like a town in an MMO where you buy stuff with the diamonds that you pick up throughout the game and earn by finishing missions. These areas are really goofy. There's a gambler who likes to play little games with you to give you weapons, there's a weapons dealer who asks you to buy guns off him but he never actually sells guns, and my personal favourite character is the shaman who has a mysterious dark magic board which tells your future. It says stuff like your friends could be your enemies and your enemies could be your friends, which funnily enough is exactly what happens towards the end of the game. I guess he can tell your future? As you go through the missions, you meet your buddies who are sort of systematic in the main game, like they were quite unscripted in their actions when they came to save you and when you had to save them and that sort of thing, but here they're just scripted characters where they tied you through the story, though they are all recognizable names from the main game. Most characters with names are. After 3 APR missions, you go with your buddies to the UFLL headquarters as the hub for the next 3 missions. It's basically the same place with all the same people, which is kind of suspicious to be honest, but let's not question that any further. One of the missions for the UFLL has you riding a motorbike, which turns the game into a very clunky scrolling shooter, and you do this one other time in the game and it's not fun at all, but it breaks up the pace a bit and it looks nice at least. Another thing they break up the usual simple gameplay with are these brief minefields, where you're meant to avoid the mines with a proximity detector, but literally just running headfirst through them and stepping on the mines is the way to go, because even on hard mode, they don't kill you, and if you just wait a few seconds, you regen back to full health. Incredible. Along with an unlimited ammo pistol and an AK-47, you also get a sniper and a flamethrower to play with, neither of which are particularly good. The sniper can be handy for taking out guys from a distance where you actually have to aim it manually and it's really slow to use, but the flamethrower is borderline useless because you have to get up real close to actually hit anyone, and this game is all about staying in cover to survive. That said, it is fun in the indoor ship level because it's so close quarters. A lot of missions end with you ditching your buddies when the going gets tough, which you have no choice in, which eventually culminates in all of them betraying you and trying to kill you, which is kind of what happens in Far Cry 2, so kudos to that. It culminates in an ultra ghetto quick time event to kill them all, which is very cute. The Jackal then convinces you that he ain't that bad, and he asks you to help him out with getting refugees across the border, which happens in the main game. The final hub is the Jackal's camp, which for some reason has all the same cast standing around. Even the gambler and the shaman are here. Don't ask. To the game's credit, you do end up helping out the Jackal to help refugees out of the country, just like you should. After shooting around a bit and taking out the APR and UFLL guys as well as some very simple anticlimactic bosses, you make it to the big finale where the refugees need to cross the bridge, but there's a truck blocking the way that's packed with explosives. You forego any critical thinking, hop in the truck and drive it across the bridge to your tragic demise, and everyone comically yells no one after another, including everyone's favorite shaman who probably should have seen this coming. This is the cute, boiled down version of Far Cry 2's rather bleak ending where both you and the Jackal go on a suicide mission to save the refugees. Where it's dark and depressing there, it's hilarious here, and as a bonus you unlock a new playable character that is a malfunctioning robot that thinks it's a mercenary. And I guess this robot is also prone to malaria. This speaks for itself. Speaking of the bad thing that is malaria, they tried to put some sort of malaria system in this game, but I'm not completely sure what it does. So in the hub areas you can buy malaria medicine, which makes this mysterious bar go up, but when you leave it and it reaches 0, nothing bad seems to happen. You can just play through the game without the medicine. Apparently buying medicine ambiguously improves your health, but I didn't really notice. I assume it gives you more health while it's high, but you die pretty quickly in this game regardless, so I don't know what this system actually is. To be honest, I have a suspicion it's all placebo. And there we kind of sum up Gameloft's version of Far Cry 2. But mini-me, you ask, why did you play the 240x320 version of the game when there's a 640x360 version? Well, I'm glad you finally asked, my curious friend, because what should be the nice widescreen version is actually a lot worse. The detail in the levels are just a massive downgrade here, and I couldn't find a version that matched the high detailed version. Compare the start of the good version to the start of this version, and it's like the only really nice thing about this game is the graphics, and when they're stripped away completely, it just kinda sucks. It does have touchscreen support though, which is pretty interesting. You move towards the cursor, but you can't hold to drag it around, so it's pretty awkward, but on the plus side, you can actually tap who you want to shoot, which is sort of a game changer, but it's too bad that the graphics suck. Oh, and just for curiosity's sake, here's the smallest version at 128 by 128. This thing is just completely insane. They've simplified the low graphics version to make all the levels look smaller, but this is generally the same game from start to finish with the same mechanics. You don't get to pick a character, and the UI is redone to be as simple as possible, making this essentially a demake of what is otherwise a demake. I'm sure there's a Zivot or an Inception joke in here somewhere. So should you play Far Cry 2 mobile? No. No, you shouldn't. The game is just, it's far too simple and sketchy to be enjoyable, but it's definitely an interesting little oddity that was fun to delve into as a topic for me. It's another of many weird demake port things I've looked at, and it's fair to say that this one isn't the best, but what can you expect from a J2ME game? It's at least pleasant on the eyes, and it's not too annoying, so you know. I got through it, I made a video about it, and I'm gonna forget it forever. Thanks for joining me with diving into this. I have a full playthrough of this game on my second channel with commentary if you're curious. Links to everything will be in the description. Hope you enjoyed the vid, take it easy, and have a good one.